Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. I saw some videos from YouTubers that I follow who ranked all the books that they read in 2021 and ranked them from best to worst. And I thought that was a great idea, so that's something I want to do with you today as well. So let's get started. So I saw one of the YouTubers use this website TierMaker, and I have already uploaded all of the covers for all the books that I read this last year. When it's like this, it doesn't look like a lot, but it still is. I have done 5 categories, top one being Chef's Kiss, and that is 5 stars for me. Next one, So Good, is a 4-star rating. Number 3 is It Was Okay, 3-star rating. Not Good is 2-star, and I Hated It is 1-star, or if I could have given it 0 stars, I would have. To keep this video somewhat short, I won't expand a lot on what each of the books were about. I might mention a genre, or if there's anything special about that book that I definitely wanted to acknowledge, then I will do that as well. So I'm just gonna go down the line, the list of books, and start ranking them. I also have Goodreads open on my phone to remember the ratings that I gave each book and see if I wrote any review. I only started writing reviews recently on past books that I've read, so there might be some where I don't really remember why I may have given it that rating, but that's just how it is. So the first book, Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I gave this book a 2-star rating on Goodreads. To be honest, when I was looking at the cover for this book, I had to take a minute to actually remember what even happened in this book. And then I remembered, oh yeah, emails. It was just weird, I don't know. I wasn't really into it. It just seemed like a weird storyline, therefore not good. You Are a Badass, which is a non-fiction book. I gave it a 3-star rating. It was okay for me. I think this book was hyped up a lot, especially in the nonfiction category. I think it motivated a lot of people or encouraged a lot of people, and for me it was just all right. So these next 2 books, they are a German young adult middle grade series, and it's called Silver, the Book of Dreams, and Silver being the last girl, or the last name of the main character. And when I first read this book, I wanted to try and get more into reading more German books to improve my German, and I picked up this book one day. I was at the library, I'd never heard of it ever, and just decided to try it out, and ended up actually really liking it. It was a chef's kiss for me. It was kind of a spooky book. It had my attention the whole way. I thought it was awesome. Really great book. Coming to the second book of the series, I ended up giving this book a 3-star rating. I think it was, if I had to rank, I'd probably say it was better than You Are a Badass, just because I think in a lot of trilogies, the middle book kind of falls plot-wise, because it's trying to pick up from the first book, but it's also trying to set you up for the third book. And there's just not really a lot of interesting things that happen. I mean, there were some parts that I was like, my attention immediately was gripped. I have not read the third book yet. It's still on my TBR list, but I'm excited to finish the series because I do actually really like the series, but the second book just kind of fell flat for me. Next up, we have Coraline. Coraline, I rated So Good. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I really like the movie. I kind of like spooky stories, and Coraline is spooky. It's unsettling. However, I think the movie was spookier, and I was missing some of that spookiness in the book a little bit. So I was a little bit disappointed in the book, but I guess that's why you're supposed to read the book first and then watch the movie, but whatever. Hangman's Curse. A lot of people don't know about this book. It's technically a Christian book. It's a fiction book based off of a family who kind of do like an undercover projects to help the government solve crimes or whatever, or weird things that are happening. and they get this case about a high school where students are landing up in the hospital and no one knows why. They're kind of hallucinating and weird things are happening at the school. And so it's kind of their story of how they investigate the school undercover to figure out what is happening. And I have seen the movie, so I grew up watching the movie, which is pretty good. It has Blair from Gossip Girl on there. She's very young, it's very cute. And, but the book and the movie are not very different. I'd say, as with most book to movie adaptations, there might be some embellishments in the movies that aren't in the books. Like there is no romance in the book as there is in the movie, but it's still a really good and interesting story. Because I really like the movie, I was kind of bummed that the book wasn't exactly like it. So it got lost 1 star from me, and I'll put it behind Coraline in the So Good. Coming to the Starless Sea, man, if there ever was a book that I really wanted to like or wish I would have liked, it would be this one. This was my first Erin Morgenstern book. I don't know why it fell flat for me. I could not get into it. It was almost too weird for me. Like I couldn't understand the plot. I couldn't understand the writing. I think the writing was beautiful, but it wasn't enough to like, I couldn't actually understand what was happening. It just felt like a weird dream thing that was like a fever dream. And I couldn't really get into it. So I'm gonna put it before Attachments, but in the not good section. The Little Paris Bookshop was okay. I might put it towards the end here. I really didn't like the plot very much. I was kind of hoping more for a bookshop atmosphere, and it was mentioned, but it was way more about like the personal story of the bookshop owner than it was about the bookshop. So I was kind of disappointed about that, but it was still okay. The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Okay, I have not read thrillers very much, and this was awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm probably gonna put it before the Silber. I loved it so much. It had my attention. I loved the idea behind it of waking up in someone else's body every day to figure out a mystery. Ugh, amazing. I loved it. A lot of plot twists. Very good. Bridgerton. Last year, as Bridgerton came out on Netflix, I devoured it, I think maybe in one night. And I was highly encouraged by myself to read the books because I found out it was based on books and I wanted to read the books. So when I went to Oregon, I found the book at a bookstore, bought it, and I didn't read it until this last summer, and I devoured it very quickly. It's really easy to read. It's very romantic, and just an overall feel-good story. So I'm going to rank it behind the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, but still really good book. Following in closely is the second book of the Bridgerton series, The Viscount Who Loved Me, which I recently finished, and it was also a 5-star read for me. I'm just gonna put it behind the first one. A lot spicier than the first one, but still very, very good. To Kill a Mockingbird, I got in some classics this last year because I found like audiobook versions of them on Spotify, and To Kill a Mockingbird was one of them that I listened to. I did not like the narrator on Spotify very well, so maybe that's why it's losing a star for me, because I couldn't really get into it. I think the person who narrates the stories is very important in how it's done when you listen to audiobooks, and so that's probably why it's losing it for me. But I think it's a really great story, and I totally understand why it's a classic. Of just not judging people based on maybe what they look like or what you've heard about them, and breaking down those walls. Really great story, amazing. But probably just because of the audiobook, I gave it 4 stars. So it's gonna go in the So Good. I might place it at the end here. The Tea Dragon Society. I have 2 books, the first and the second one that I read. I picked them up at the library when I was in Oregon. I'd heard about them and they look so cute that I wanted to read them, and they're just very beautiful illustration books. I flew through both of them in one day, obviously because they're very short, and they both got 5 stars for me because they're beautiful. I probably will put them at the end, but still very, very beautiful books. So that's the Tea Dragon Society and the Tea Dragon Festival. Next up, we have the Comfort Book by Matt Haig. I love this book. This is probably, I'm probably gonna put at the top of my 5-star books because it's a nonfiction book that has different entries in it to comfort you if you are feeling stressed or just unwell. And it felt like a therapy session every time I was reading it. It's very comforting. It reminds me that I'm just a human. We all make mistakes and the earth just keeps on spinning and I'm still deserving of love. So I highly recommend this book, especially if you have mental health issues. But despite that, I recommend it to anyone. Incredible book. This book like solidified my idea of, or solidified my opinion of having Matt Haig as my favorite author. The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. It's similar to Coraline. It's a cute story because it is middle grade and it has spooky aspects to it, but it's not spooky really at all. And so I think I was hyping it up because all the reviews I'd heard or read about this book were talking about how spooky it was, and I didn't see that very much. So it's going to go in the 3-star rating. I'll probably put it after Silver. Next we have Great Expectations. This was another book that I listened to on Spotify, even though I have a physical copy of it. So there were some times where if I was like wanting to relax and sit down and read, I would look at where I was at on Spotify and then maybe read a chapter or 2 in the physical book and then listen to the rest. Dickens is kind of hard for me to understand. I want to like Dickens, but this book kind of fell flat for me because it is a coming of age story, and there's another coming of age story in here as well. But I feel like I can't really get into it. I don't know, I think coming of age stories are kind of boring, but it is a Dickens and it is very well written. Obviously it's a classic, so that's why it earned a full 3 stars from me. I will put it, I think I'll put it between Little Paris Bookshop and You Are a Badass. Now that I'm going through some of these lists, there are some books on here that I'll probably end up putting in the I hated it section, even though on Goodreads I technically gave it 2 stars. Next up we have Blue Like Jazz. This is a nonfiction book, and on the front it says non-religious thoughts on Christianity. I didn't find it to be non-religious at all. I don't know, it was weird. I mean, there were some parts that I did kind of like, so that's why I'm probably just gonna keep it in the not good section, but it's gonna be towards the end for me. Wolkenschloss is a book that there's also an English translation of it called Castle in the Sky, and it's by the same author of the Silber books that I was reading. This was another German book that I read that I got as a Christmas gift last year, and I've only heard good things about it because everyone loved the atmosphere, the Christmassy atmosphere, the snow, and just the coziness of it all. So it was kind of high up there in expectations. But the plot, there is no plot. There's not really a story until the very, very end. And at the beginning you're just like, when is something gonna happen? And like 200 or 300 pages in, something finally happens. It was whatever. But I did like the atmosphere, but I do find that it's probably just her writing style. I feel like the characters are very similar in all books. Maybe it's just because somehow I hear like a specific German voice in my head when I read. I don't know, but yeah, this one got a 3-star from me. I'll probably put it before Little Paris Bookshop. Okay, Pumpkinheads. This is a illustrative, I don't want to say comic book, but a graphic novel. Oh my gosh, I love this book so much. It's probably gonna go in front of Bridgerton. I thought the story was so freaking cute. I love the nostalgia that it gives me of pumpkin patches. I wish I could just like throw myself into the story of the book and be there with the characters. I loved it. Next book is Dracul, which is kind of the prequel to Dracula. I read this as a book club read and I ended up actually really liking it. This is very spooky and gothic, and I have never read a gothic book before, but I love it's just eerie, and I think that's very interesting. And I liked this kind of like history more about Dracula, or even just about Bram Stoker, obviously fictional, but just the way that the authors have always continued to leave that air of suspense, and it's not fiction, which I think is kind of cool. This one also got 5 stars. There's a lot of 5 stars on here, which I'm very excited about. I will place it, I think I'll place it also before Bridgerton. Next book is Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman, which was also a book club book, and I give this one 4 stars. It is a prequel to Practical Magic series. I will put it at the top of the So Good section. I think the writing was beautiful. I really did enjoy the story a lot. The thing that was hard for me is there were super long chapters with little to no dialogue. So it just kind of drags or is dry a little bit for me. It's not something that you can just fly through, but it is a really, really beautiful story. The Sacred Echo is another nonfiction Christian book that I read. It was better than Blue Like Jazz, and it got 3 stars, but it was still not a big favorite of mine. So I'll probably just place it at the end of the It Was Okay. With We Were Liars, this one got a 5-star rating from me because it had an incredible plot twist, and it has that New England style that I really enjoyed, or New England setting, and I love the plot twist, and it got 5 stars for me just because of the plot twist, but I'll put it towards the end because it's not the best of the 5 stars. Let's just say that. Love and Respect is another nonfiction Christian book that I read. I've heard a lot of things about it, and when I was in Oregon at the library, it was available, and it was on my TBR or TBR list for a very long time, so I decided to just try it out. It was okay. That's why it's going to end up in the It Was Okay section. I even gave it 3 stars. It was alright, but it wasn't as interesting as I was hoping it to be, but it was better than The Sacred Echo. Daisy Jones and the Six. Man, I have a lot of 5-star reads. Incredible book. It probably is my favorite book that I've ever read. I flew through it. Love the characters. It felt so real. I demand a movie. I demand songs. It's incredible. I love it. Loved it. The Secret History, also a 5-star read, was also a book club read. Man, that is dark academia, let me tell you. I loved it though. It was really good. It's a long book, which is kind of daunting. There are some parts that kind of drag, but I thought it was really well written. But because it did kind of drag, I'll put it towards the end of Bridgerton. Yeah. Next up we have The Midnight Library. This one is a second favorite of the year. Another Matt Haig book. Loved it. He incorporates mental health issues into his stories really well, and just hits me right in the gut, right where I need it, things that I'm personally going through. He creates stories about them, so incredible. Forrest Gump. I technically gave it 2 stars on Goodreads, but this is going to be I think the only book on this list that is going to end up in the I hated it section. It was not good. I hate it. It's awful. Forrest is racist. It's nothing like movie Forrest Gump at all. I mean, it's the same storyline technically of a man with mental disabilities and low intelligence or low IQ, and just going through life and things like the oddest of things happening to him just because he doesn't really know better. I think the movie played that story well, really, really well. Book Forest is just like, these are such random things that are happening to you, like one right after the other, not realistic. I mean, obviously the movie Forrest Gump isn't super realistic either, but it's more realistic than Book Forest. And Book Forest is a big guy. He's aggressive, kind of. It's just weird. It's a weird story. I hated it. I like the first couple pages in, I wanted to put it down. I hated it. But I'm not good at DNFing, which means did not finish. So I had to finish it. I'm really disappointed because I love that movie. I read 3 books of the Chronicles of Narnia series, starting with The Magician's Nephew, which is the first book. And because these are in my collection, I wasn't able to count them as singular books on Goodreads, but I will rate them here. And to be quite honest, I can't exactly remember if I actually read The Magician's Nephew this last year or not. I know I read the last 2, but I'll just count it anyways. So The Magician's Nephew will get, it was okay. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, fantastic story, really good. The Horse and His Boy was kind of harder for me to get into. I don't really understand the meaning of it. Excuse my cats. I did not like The Horse and His Boy very much. It's probably gonna go in the not good section, to be honest. But after the start, after the start, let's see. Hashtag girl boss. I saw the Netflix show about Sophia Amoroso and I wanted to try the book, and it got 4 stars. It was pretty good. It was really a good story. I think there were some helpful tips in it. I don't really remember a lot. I read it towards the beginning of last year. Talking as Fast as I Can from Lauren Graham was a book that I wanted to read for a long time, and mostly just because I'm obsessed with Gilmore Girls, and I really, really wanted to read her kind of story about behind the scenes and her experience with it. But she honestly didn't get into it as much. It was really just an autobiography of her life. So it was good, but I didn't get that exciting Gilmore Girls association that I was looking for. Forgotten God is another non-fiction Christian book that I read. I honestly don't remember much about it. I gave it a 3-star rating, which I will just put towards the end. Quiet is a great 5-star non-fiction book about introverts. I felt very seen and validated in that book. Incredible. I highly recommend. I will probably end up putting it after The Secret History. The Happiness Project. To be honest, I really don't remember a whole lot of what was talked about in that book. I do have some pictures from specific pages that I think spoke to me or had good tips on them. And I gave it a 4-star rating, so I'll just throw it up there as well. The Perfect You. This is a non-fiction, also Christian book that asks you questions to figure out who you are really and how your brain functions in certain situations. There's a lot of scientific research behind it as well, just how the brain works and how personalities work, which I think was very interesting. There's also a huge section of lots of questions that the author asks you that you can answer to help define who you are. But there's a lot of questions. I didn't get to all of them. I started it, but I did read all the text in the book, and it's interesting, but it's not great. So it got 3 stars from me. I'll probably put it at Before Love and Respect. Period Repair Manual. This is a great nonfiction book of teaching you all about menstrual patterns, what to do if you have irregular periods, and more of a natural approach. And I think it's a great, great, great book to teach you all about periods, how they're supposed to work, and what to do if something isn't working right. The Night Circus was my second Erin Morgenstern book. It got 3 stars for me. I don't think I really like the genre of fantasy very much. It was okay, but I will still place it towards the top of it was okay because I think it was good. The final 2 books, I started Lord of the Rings this year. I've yet to read the last book of the trilogy, but man, The Fellowship of the Ring, it's kind of hard to read because it's kind of long and it's not exactly the type of English that you speak day to day. So it's kind of hard to focus. And I also would read the physical book as well as listen to it on Spotify. And I think it's great. It's a really great story. The Fellowship of the Ring is so, so, so good. I totally understand why there's movies made about it. It really is just a great story. I'm going to put it before Silver. The second book, The Two Towers, also a great book. But like I said with trilogies, the second book seems to fall flat. So it got 4 stars. I'll put it after The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So that is it. There thankfully weren't that many books that I found to be terrible. There are some that I think I would have, if I would have DNF'd, it probably would have been the ones at the very bottom. But I can't do that very well. It's very hard for me to do that. But I'm thankful with this turnout. And if you see my top reads and you like the type of genres that I like, I really like nonfiction, as you can tell, as well as contemporaries and some romance. Try these ones out. I really, really like these books. I had a good year, and this is the most books I've ever read in a year, so I'm excited and proud of myself for that and hoping to improve this next year. But thank you so much for coming and ranking all these books with me, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye! Say bye, Soy!